Okay. We are back in our formal session. Apologies for that. The YouTube stream dropped off there around 10:50. So we were in the middle of a discussion on item H3, right? H3. So just a quick recap. Last week we had questions about the sort of demand for uninsured COVID vaccinations, and received clarification this week that the funding isn't for the actual vaccine, but it's for county staff time to administer the vaccine. And that it is not possible to kind of split the funding. There's two pieces in this amendment. So I believe that covers a recap. It's a quick recap on that. Is there any further questions for Director Manfred?
I know we are working with LGAC and some of the HHS AOC meetings to really get more autonomy at the county level for some of these programs and policies and program elements. It's going to be a heavy lift, but other counties are also facing the same thing. You know, they want to have a little bit more of the ability to pick and choose what would be tailored to their county. So we're working on that, but right now it's pretty much one size fits all.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. Any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you. All right, one more.
I'll sit tight.
H4. Consideration of approval of amendment number 1 to the Local Mental Health Authority, Local Public Health Authority, and Coordinated Care Organization Agreement between Yamhill County and Yamhill County Care Organization, Board Order 23-04, updating data reporting language, increasing funding from $350,140.05 per year to $360,644.25 per year, and extending the terms of the agreement through December 31st of 2024, subject to final review and approval of County Council's office. This was actually continued from December 21st of 2023. And I believe it was continued because we had requests for an update on the needle exchange program and the statistics around the needle exchange program. Commissioners, I believe we all saw that in our packet, or actually maybe it was emailed. Are there any questions on the needle exchange statistics?
A statistic about the collection, there were what, 1,400 needles collected. Is that typically what the
14,000.
14,000? Is that typically what is collected by other entities or other people saying, hey, I found needles? Or is this something that just the needle exchange program, the one van, is collecting or taking in?
It is just what they are taking in, either through the exchange or through the sweeps that they do just through parks and other places to just go clean up if they see things. I do know that they have been responsive in the past if a community member has messaged them to say, hey, I saw some needles in wherever, that they have actively gone out to do an extra sweep there.
So just another quick question regarding the community health assessment and the CHA and the CHIP, as you guys call it, the community health improvement plan. That is required by the state, correct?
It is part of the modernization requirements,
Right.
yes, that we have one of those.
So whether or not so in other words, the funding to do that is in this piece.
Well, we are very lucky in that our CCO helps support that work for us. That the CCO is not required to financially support that, but yes.
But the state would not cover that if not for the CCO in our.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We do not receive any funding for the state specific to the community health assessment or improvement plan.
So the funding also covers the, where is it? Family Wellbeing Council,
Correct.
paying for that.
Paying for 0.5 of the FTE,
Of
and
that.
then we braid an additional 2 funding streams to support the full FTE.
Okay.
And those other 2 pieces of funding are state funding.
Okay, thank you.
So the needle exchange van has been controversial, as you know, from the get-go. It was with kind of in-house with us, and then it moved to the CCO. And over the years, I've had conversations with folks at Provoking Hope who are in recovery, and some of them don't agree with it. Some of them have left Provoking Hope because of it. And that's okay. The recovery community is very diverse in terms of how people respond. But at the Provoking Hope dinner last Saturday night, the gentleman who runs the program, I think it's called the One Program, said in front of a huge room full of people that 2/3 of what they do with this van is peer-to-peer service. It's not needle exchange.
Mhm.
So we're down to basically 1/3 of what they're doing is exchange of needles or picking up needles, which is fascinating to me. The majority of what they're doing is basically administering Narcan. So I think that it's worth having a discussion with the CCO about, and Provoking Hope about how the perception of the van. And I've received a lot of complaints about how the van looks like an ambulance, and it's quite jarring when you see it. And it sort of raises your concern when you see it. Maybe that's an ongoing conversation we can have with them. But I mean, the message that we were hearing Saturday night is this is basically now the Narcan ban. It's not the needle exchange ban. And I'm not saying there's a problem with that. I'm just saying that the whole purpose of this program seems to have shifted to saving lives, literally. What's also concerning is that, you know, when you look at 472 encounters that they've had in last year, 2023, if you consider that, you know, what his report is accurate, 1/3 of those 155 people are the ones going through 14,000 needles. It's probably a smaller number than that, but that's concerning too, right? The addiction level is higher in a very small group of people in this county. And unfortunately, they seem to be centered in McMinnville based on the feedback.
Yeah, I'm happy to share some thoughts on those pieces. I think the intention of utilizing a contractor, specifically a peer organization, was to make sure that a huge component was that peer-to-peer outreach. So I think that was really intentional, knowing that oftentimes that relatable connection is what might help someone take that next step. And so that was really intentional, that was the piece. I think the Narcan distribution certainly has, we've seen a shift in that. That was not something that happened in 2019 when this started, right? One, because Narcan wasn't as available as it is today, but also because, as you noted, the number of overdoses are just skyrocketing, as we all know. And so we're seeing an increase in that. One of the things that is just a little bit of historical context around the actual unit itself. When the former director and I brought this original proposal to the commissioners at the time, part of that budget included the purchase of a smaller, sort of more like a mini van type thing that had sort of like a combination between minivan and transit van. So there was storage and all of those things. At the time, the board was it didn't seem like a way that they wanted to use the funds. And so upon hearing that, the then chief of McMinnville Fire, who has now since retired, reached out and said that they had in his words, "We have a rig that we're about to retire. Are you interested in it?" And they gave it to us for free. And so that's where that came from. Is it ideal? No. But it's working, right? And without another financial option, it was sort of the best we could do at the time. I think that there would certainly be interest in if we had a funding stream or a funding mechanism to revisit that and make it something that was a little bit more user-friendly, particularly now, as I noted, as the report noted, as we are seeing an increase in things like cellulitis and just skin infections and things like that, and now have a nurse going out with individuals at these sites and doing assessments in skincare. It certainly would be nice to have something that was a little more conducive to that work. But again, we make do with what we have.
Yeah.
Chair, just historically, I was the one who basically said, you're gonna spend what on a van? How about you sharpen your pencil and do what the rest of us do and drive beaters? And so you have me to blame. And then when they came up with this option, it was definitely free is a very good price.
It is a good price.
Well, it's also it's the color of it too, right? I mean, it looks like
Yeah.
someone is in medical distress, and it's sort of raises your blood pressure a bit. So anyway, that's been some of the feedback is, why does it have to look like that? Why can't it look a little bit more, not like an ice cream truck, but like, a little more user friendly? But I think that, we've had heartburn and back and forth over the years over the needle exchange part. I was shocked to sit there and hear that 2/3 of what they're doing is not needle exchange. It's actually Narcan administration and handing out lunches and dinners and backpacks and supplies and all of that. It changes the perception of what's happening in some ways, in a good way about the program, but it's also quite alarming from a community standpoint that we are having, skyrocketing overdose rates. So,
Absolutely. I agree.
so something to consider maybe in further discussions with the CCO and Provoking Hope.
Yes, I have questions.
Oh, okay.
So,
ahead.
and most of this goes back to our last meeting from December when Commissioner Sterrett brought up the tracking of information, and then you sent the email with all the numbers in it. And then I sent you an email, which I think all of you guys received when you replied all back. So my question was, after sending the report, was specific on one item on page 5, the 242 referrals, and if we have the data that tracks after that and how many people have been through or attempted to go through treatment or completed treatment, which again was prompted by Commissioner Sterrett's comment on our meeting on the 21st. And your reply back, I have a few questions on that.
Absolutely.
So towards the top, I'll just read from the email. Your reply, unfortunately, we don't have the information. The reason is because the program is anonymous. So my first question to that is, can that be changed? Does it have to be anonymous? Or is that like a regulation from the state or the feds that?
I'm not aware of a regulation. I certainly, since this funding is coming from the CCO, right, we would need to get their sign off that they would still be supportive of a program that was not anonymous. The reason I think there may be concern on their end, and the reason we elected to have it be anonymous, is as much as there's community angst, there's also angst in people accessing this and worried about, our law enforcement going to come and find me now, those types of things. And so as you look at needle exchange programs and recommendations and best practices, it has been to have them be anonymous.
Okay. Towards the middle, you said that the data would be inaccurate because while some people come from HHS, there's also many people who go to one of the other medication-assisted treatment providers. There's an array of different medically managed withdrawal detox programs, in some of these cases, other outpatient programs. This would mean that we would only be collecting a slice of where people may end up and would artificially deflate numbers. So with that, as Yamhill County being the healthcare provider, are we allowed to collect that data from other providers?
We would not be able to collect that data. We could collect, there could be CCO data. And again, that would only be for individuals who were on YCCO as an insurance. So it would exclude anyone who was uninsured, open card Medicaid, or privately insured or Medicare. They could collect claims data that looked at how many people, and we do see this data, right? How many people are in any given detox facility. What we wouldn't then be able to do is link those individuals with people at the exchange because,
Right.
again, of the anonymity.
All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, I will move approval of item H4. Is there further discussion or questions for Director Manfred?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great. Thank you. Motion passes and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, take care.
All right, item I, other business. I1 is consideration of approval in the matter of granting an easement and accepting an equitable servitude for county property located at 2060 Northeast Lafayette Avenue, McMinnville, Oregon, 97128, tax lot number R 4415016000. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And I just wanted to give Mark Lago, I believe he wrote this up, but a shout out for the part called fiscal impact, where it says no more DEQ invoices. Cracked me up last night. All right, any further questions?
None.
And also learning what a lust permit is.
Leaking
Which stands
underground
for-
something. Leaking underground
Leaking
storage.
Leaky underground storage
Bingo. Yeah.
tank. Leaking underground lust permit. All right, there is a motion to approve. If nothing further, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you. I2, consideration of approval of amendment number 1 to an agreement between Yamhill County and Data Cloud Solutions, Board Order 18-382, updating language to a software license renewal and related professional appraisal services agreement in the not to exceed amount of $65,000 and extending the agreement through June 30th of 2030. So I met with our assessor, Derek Wharf, and the team this past week, and this is basically an attempt to create significant efficiencies with the current staff by using funds from an open, kind of hard to fill appraiser position. And it's just considerable time for his team to do these sketches and upload them. So this software will streamline all of that. So I will move approval. Is there further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item I3, consideration of approval of agreement number DOR-285-23 between Yamhill County and the Department of Revenue to establish GIS digitized boundaries for taxing districts in the amount of $30,000 effective upon approval through December 31st of 2024. And if you recall, this is the grant that we approved for a pilot project to map the west side of the county. And then depending on the success of that effort, it could be extended to the entire county. And this kind of came up as a result of, not as a result, but certainly in light of the McMinnville Fire District merger and the issues with the boundary descriptions being inaccurate. So I will move approval of item I3. Is there further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Before we get into public hearings, I want to do announcements because I have a sneaking feeling that Commissioner Starrett is not going to want to stick around for the number 3. So I want to make sure we get in announcements before you have to leave or choose to leave. So let's skip to those real quick. Let's see. As I mentioned before, I attended the Provoking Hope dinner on Saturday night. The room was packed. It was a beautiful, beautiful dinner. Just an amazing group of folks that work for that organization and certainly has grown over the years. And I'm continuously impressed and amazed by the courage of individuals to stand up in front of a group of people and describe their journey to recovery. It is almost never a straight line. And so it was a very moving dinner. And the director, Diane Reynolds, talked about how in the beginning, when she started Provoking Hope, she had a vision to, or a hope to create a facility, a detox center, if you will. And that dream just sort of never materialized. And in the past several months, she had a vision that she needed to do this and push this. And so she got up at 3 a.m. and sketched out her vision of what came to her and put it on paper. And so she presented that to the group, and it is a photo of a detox center and a residential treatment center that could be used for servicing folks in addiction, suffering from addiction in our county. So I printed this out. I'm going to put it in my office, and it's certainly going to become part of our discussions going forward as we talk about how the county can partner and potentially use opioid settlement funds to help her achieve this goal. Because when you ask anybody in the recovery community, what is the biggest thing that we need in Yamaha County, they will shout that we need detox centers and treatment centers. So this is something I think that is worth looking into and potentially partnering on. I met with our county clerk, Carrie Hinton, this week. She's gearing up for this election. This is a big year, big election. There are a lot of new security measures that need to be in place for this year, so she's working on those. I met with the assessment and taxation team at their winter meeting. Very impressed with this group. They're very goal-driven, just an amazing leadership and staff members. And they really are leading the state in terms of the programs that they're running and teaching other counties how to do certain things more efficiently. So they're setting an example statewide, and very proud of them. And then finally, I met with Joya Goodrum, our Economic Development Director, and she is working on her vision for the year, which includes some small business grants and revolving loan fund potentially. And we just talked about some of the concerns that we have over the economic environment here in terms of banking and housing, and how our county is affected by the state, is affected by the federal government and the decisions that are happening there. So lots of good discussion. I'm hoping that she can come before the board fairly soon and update us all on her plan for the year. So that's all I have for announcements. Commissioners, any further announcements?
Thank you, Chair. Just this HHS Summit #4, we were at that last week, and we had a presentation from Senator Kate Lieber. A lot of information about, obviously, Measure 114. We talked about actually having more local control over some of those behavioral health dollars and having the funding come to the counties and then diverted to the CBOs, the community benefit organizations, rather than just sending that money out the door and not having any accountability to that. And the other thing is we talked about the LEAD program, law enforcement assisted diversion, in terms of that being an option when we're dealing with crisis and addiction in the communities, and our law enforcement response to it. Wanted to let you know that I was able to just witness some of the candidate 4-H program coordinator candidate presentations, and I submitted my preference, and I hope that we get this one particular person who is very much interested in bringing this out 4-H program to the foster kids in the community. So I just have a dog in that fight. And then tomorrow is the CCO retreat, and we'll be talking about some of the issues that are before that.
Nice.
Commissioner?
Yes. Last night was the point in time count that me and my wife volunteered for. We got our YCAP advisor that was working with us was Dan Winters. Super awesome guy. He's in charge of the food bank, director of the food bank. We were at St. Barnabas Soup Kitchen from 4 to 6 was our slot, and it went well. And huge shout out to the soup kitchen, all those volunteers that serve. There's a lot of people that come through that soup kitchen that they help out, and they bend over backwards for, you know, the service that they give them. Everybody sits at their own designated spot, and they are waiters coming to you, serving you food. And when they're done, they came up to us. Would you like to take survey? Most did. I'd say Of the unsheltered survey, we took 20 different surveys between the three of us. There's a few things that I'd like to see change on the survey, few different questions, but I think that's it's passed down federally, what we're supposed to ask for questions. But anyway, it went very well, and I look forward to doing it again next year.
Nice. Was there a report kind of countywide on how they did throughout the county in terms of volunteers and?
The volunteer, it seemed like communications we were getting back, and since we only had a 2-hour window, they had plenty of volunteers.
Okay.
Yep, even out in West Valley, there was some openings, I'd say 2 weeks before the point in time count. And then I know when I was out in Sheridan, I announced it, but they were already signing up, but they just never were on the Survey Monkey yet.
Okay.
Or is it Survey Monkey or something else that tracks people that volunteer? But no, plenty of volunteers. Everything went well.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating in that too.
Yep.
All right, does that cover announcements? Yes? Okay. All right, so before we get into public hearings, I am going to take a 5-minute break or so. We'll be back at 11:30. Okay, welcome back to the formal session for January 25th, 2024. It is 11:33 and we are picking back up on the agenda at public hearings. And there has been a request to combine hearing number 1 and 2, or item number 1 and 2. And it appears there is no objection by either side of either of those docket numbers. So we will go ahead and combine the two. Commissioners, if there's no objection to that.
No.
Okay,
None.
we're good. Okay. I have never combined two hearings, so bear with me. All right. J1 is docket C-14-23, an appeal of the planning director's approval of a request for the operation of a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use to allow the tasting of locally produced wine and the sale of locally produced wine, beer, and other malt beverages and cider at the existing approved on-site farm stand. The applicant is Carlton Hub LLC. The appellant is Friends of Yamhill County. Tax lot tax lot 3409-00101. Docket, J2, docket C-15-23. An appeal of the planning director's approval of a request for the operation of a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use to allow the sale of locally produced wine, beer, cider, and other malt beverages at the existing on-site farm stand. The farm stand was approved on June 20th of 2023 by docket SDR-12-23. The applicant is Ground 152 LLC. The appellant is Friends of Yamhill County, tax lot number 3523-02400. And we will combine both of these hearings together. All right, commissioners, I will open the hearing. Are there any abstentions from members of the board?
None.
Does any party have any objection to the jurisdiction of this board to hear the matter before it? Okay. Does any board member need to announce and state on the record the substance of any ex parte contact or site visits?
Nope.
Nope. I do want to just declare a potential conflict of interest. The attorney, Mr. Elzinga, for the applicants I have been represented by him in the past. And so I just wanted to state that for the record. It will not have any bearing on my decision on either of these two hearings.
Chair, I'd like to declare the same conflict of interest. Mr. Elzinga has been very busy and I was definitely took up some of his time. So nice to see you, Mr. Elzinga.
And I hope to never have your services.
I was counting last night how many attorneys I've had in the past 5 years. It's kind of scary. All right. We will now have our planning director read the statements required by law.
Thank you. Oregon law requires that persons who attend a land use hearing be advised of certain rights and duties before the hearing begins. First, with regard to the standards for approval, state law, ORS 197.797, requires that we list the applicable substantive criteria that must be met in order for the county to approve the application. The standards will be listed by the county planner in a moment as part of the staff report. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the standards for approval. Second, the raise it or waive it rule. Under Oregon law, any issue that might be raised in an appeal of the county's decision in this matter must be raised before the record of this hearing is closed. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the board based on that issue. Third, and this is directed to the applicant, under ORS 197.796, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval, again, with sufficient specificity to allow the county to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Finally, I will also note that under Oregon law, and because this is the initial evidentiary hearing on both of these matters, any participant, that is anyone who submits oral or written testimony during this hearing, may, before the record is closed, request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The request must be made prior to the time the chair announces that the hearing is closed.
Thank you. And so now we will do the staff report for 14 and then 15.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That's good. All right.
The applicable approval criteria and standards include sections 402.02B, 402.04G, 402.07A, and 1202.02 of the Yamhill County zoning ordinance. Comprehensive plan policies may also be applicable. Staff report for C14-23 is the lot that is the subject of this docket is located at 15713 Highway 47, which is approximately 1,000 feet south of Yamhill. An approved farm stand has been operating on this property for several years, dating back to the prior owner of the property when the farm stand was being operated as Cuckoo Lawn Farms and Meadery. The surrounding parcels are all located within the EF80 zone, the exclusive farm use district. Land use in the area consists predominantly of large agricultural operations, including nut orchards, grass seed and alfalfa, hay cultivation, and some scattered livestock pasturage. For C-15-23, the subject lot is located at 15250 Northwest Panther Creek Road. The farm stand located on this property was approved for operation in June of 2023. The subject parcel is split zoned with the majority of the parcel located in the EF80 zone and a small portion within the AF20 zone. The farm stand itself is located in the EF80 zoned area of the subject lot. The surrounding properties to the west, south, and northwest of this property are located in the Agriculture Forestry Large Holding District, with land to the east, southeast, north, and northwest located in the AF40 zone, land to the west located in the AF20 zone, and land to the south located in the AF80 zone. Surrounding properties to the north, east, and southeast are located in the exclusive farm use district. Land use in the surrounding area runs a gamut of residential, some residential with small farm uses, agricultural uses, and predominantly passive forest use with no active commercial timber harvesting evident. Land use in the many of the lots in this surrounding area are composed of lots being used residentially, and a few larger commercial agricultural uses, including grass seed cultivation and cattle grazing. The farm stands currently sell pork, poultry, lamb, and fresh vegetables, and the applicant is requesting to add wine tasting service and the sale of locally produced wine, beer, cider, and other malt beverages as a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use to both farm stands. As it relates to the local area, staff uses the definition of a local agricultural area provided in OAR 660-033-13 sub D, which specifies Oregon as a local area or an adjacent county in Washington, Idaho, Nevada, or California that borders the Oregon county in which the farm stand is located. In this case, that would just be the entire state of Oregon. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Lance. Okay, that brings us to the applicant's case. And I believe we have Mr. Elzinga presenting the applicant's case. Okay. And I just want to make sure that the record is clear that Mrs. Miller and Mr. Fody are the applicants on both of these applications.
May we proceed?
Yes, sorry, go ahead. Oh,
Okay, hi. My name is Frank Fody, address 15560 Northwest Red Shot Lane, Carlton, Oregon. I'm here as a representative of the properties whose applications are being considered and on behalf of the lead farmer of Tabula Rasa Farms, my wife, Brenda Smola Fody. I'm giving a brief introduction and Heather and Steve Elzango will provide more information after that. So I've been a resident of Oregon for all but 3 of the last 29 years, and Brenda is a longtime resident as well. We love living on this planet. We love living in this country. We love living in Oregon, and we really love living in Yamhill County. We love working here too. Thanks to all of you that have come before us in service to ensure the balance and beauty of the state and the county. We describe our work in terms of connecting farm, food, and people through hospitality to all species. It's a tall order, but we do our part. And since we're here to talk about uses in an EFU zone, assessing balance, beauty, and livability has to start with how deeds meet permitted and primary uses. So here's some information about our agricultural deeds on behalf of agricultural uses in these zones. In our time here, we've made the following improvements on the land in EFU zones. We are now growing and selling 150 different species of veggies and edible flowers, and there was essentially none of this activity on the land before. We're continuing to raise, process, and sell chickens. We're raising more cattle than before, about 25% more than when we came. And we're raising pigs, ducks, and turkeys where before us there was not. At the same time, we're trying to build a business that's economically sustainable, which is only possible when it makes a profit. Diverse farm stand offerings that include selling our neighbors' wine and beer help us do that. So we get to the privilege of living in a beautiful rural area with small cities nestled around it. And according to the USDA data and data from the year 2020, only 14% of Americans get that privilege. We truly feel privileged. We get to we really get to protect and preserve this rural land thanks to some pretty great land use laws, and in large part, thanks to a legendary public servant by the name of Tom McCall, who was governor of Oregon when a lot of them were passed. We live here because of this. Our efforts in part are guided by some things that Tom McCall said. I'm going to give you 2 in particular. One is that he said, "Our thoughts today and our deliberations to come must spring from our determination to keep Oregon lovable and to make it even more livable." And the second is interesting in part because part of it comes from his grandfather, who was actually the governor of Massachusetts, but he brought this to all of us in the Assembly of 1970 at Oregon Legislature in 1973. And here's the quote. "In his charge of the Legislative Assembly, Sam McCall said of Massachusetts, and I say to you, Oregon, a state rich in accomplishment, towering in history and scenic beauty, and home of intelligent and prosperous people. For us to tarnish the luster of a fame so splendid would be shameful. Not to diminish it would be a very great thing, but to augment it would indeed be glory." Okay, so speaking of the glory of augmentation, yes, we want to sell local wine and beer at our farm stands, which is allowed in Yamhill County's land use regulations. One way for family farms to compete with all the other big boxes and retail outlets is to sell direct. Part of selling direct is to make the destination where you sell special enough to get people to come out and see you, as long as they don't mind how close our cow barn is to the store on Panther Creek, or that there might be a few flies and some dung nearby. Selling our neighbors' wine helps. Just want to close with thanks to all of you that have come before us in service to ensuring the balance and beauty of this state and this county. You have our promise to join you in service to that balance and beauty, both urban and rural, for as long as we live. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I am Heather Miller. My address is 16440 Northwest Red Shot Lane, and I'm here representing the grounds. I'm just going to start to go through the 5 kind of points we laid out in the letter that you received. So overview, the ground is an integrated farm operation that uses creative strategies to derive profit from sustainable farming and benefit the entire agricultural community. The ground has grown Brenda Smolafodi's original 23-acre farm to 440 acres, which is now home to over 80 cattle, 75 pigs, 1,000 chickens, 500 ducks, 200 turkeys, and many vegetable crops. The ground is first and foremost a farm, cares deeply about preserving Oregon's farmland. The ground knows that without usable farmland, Oregon has no local food, and everyone deserves to be connected to fresh local food. Some photos of our farming operation. Second point is that these applications continue the status quo. There's no net change. I'll start with C14-23. The use at this stand outside of Yamhill has been in existence since 2014. We did receive 2 neighbor comments during that the reapplication process, and we have addressed those with the following steps: widening of the access driveway, increase parking spaces at the store on site by removing landscaping, increase turnaround area by also removing landscaping to avoid any use of the adjacent neighbor's driveway, on-site portable restrooms to meet concerns regarding septic waste. And there was also some comments about water use. The addition of the products that we're asking in this application do not increase any use of water at the farm store. And C15-23, this is the property on Panther Creek Road. This is just moving an existing farm stand that was located on Meadow Lake Road, just across the valley. So old farm stand location was off Meadow Lake. It's just moving it less than a mile onto Panther Creek Road. We did receive comments from the city of Carlton regarding water. There is a well on site that does support this farm stand location. And I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Steve Elzinga. My address is 693 Chemeketa Street, Northeast, Salem, Oregon, 97301. I'm an attorney at Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt, appearing on behalf of the applicants in this case. I get to talk to you about the boring legal stuff today. And if there's one thing you take away from the legal analysis, it's this quote from a 2013 case, also filed by the party that filed the appeal here, Friends of Yamhill County. And the court in 2013 reiterated what the Oregon Supreme Court said all the way back in the 80s on the standard for commercial activities in conjunction with farm use, which is to be in conjunction with farm use, the commercial activity must enhance the farming enterprise of the local agricultural community to which the EFU land hosting that commercial activity relates. The agricultural and commercial activities must occur together in the local community to satisfy the statute. They do not have to occur together on the same property, which is what Friends is arguing here. And the court went on to recognize the policy reasons for this interpretation, which apply equally here, which is that you need to provide a local market outlet, and selling products can help advertise and cause people to come to the area, buy the produce of the vineyards and the farms, which may reinforce the profitability of operations. You can't operate a farm if it's not profitable, at least not for very long. The arguments advanced by Friends in this case are directly contradicted by that court case, and this application, both applications meet the legal standards that apply. There will be sales of local wine and beer that advance other farms around the county, both farms that directly, such as wineries, produce alcohol, as well as vineyards and people that grow hops, et cetera. So the overall local community is benefited. And Friends' arguments here, they're going to make it harder for all farmers and all farm stands to earn a living. The argument they advance is not fact specific to these farm stands. The argument they advance is a purely legal argument that if adopted would hurt everybody, not just the applicants here. Notably, the staff decision has as condition 4 what's on the screen, and basically you can sell what's produced in the applicant's farm operation, as well as what's produced in other farm operations in the local agricultural area. And Friends' argument is essentially that you have to delete the last section and you can't sell products from other farms. You can't sell your neighbor's eggs as a commercial use in conjunction with farmland. That's going to make it harder for all farms and all farm stands across the county. That's going to make it harder for farmers to earn a living who are already pinched by inflation, by international trade pressures, by taxes, by red tape, et cetera. And no matter what Friends says, the applicant's focus here is always going to be the core meat and veggie sales. That's what they produce. That's their goal. But alcohol allows them to supplement that, especially since it's a slightly higher margin product, and that ensures profitability to keep the other agricultural operations going. And if you look specifically at Yamhill County's code, the plain text of the code clearly supports these applications. And the legal argument advanced by Friends is an activist rewriting of the code that has no place in the law. They argued that 402.10b2 says only products produced from crops grown on the site can be sold. That's not what it says. And if you go to the next slide, what it actually says is, quote, retail sales and promotion of agricultural products, supplies, and services directly related to the production, harvesting, and processing of agricultural products. Nowhere in there does it say agricultural products grown only on site. It's just not there. They're asking you to add language that does not exist. And the staff report on page 4 very eloquently addresses this, and I'm just going to read from that. They say the comprehensive reading of the ordinance makes it clear that a proposed commercial activity in conjunction with farm use is intended to promote or support farm activities occurring in the local area, and veterinarian clinics that only serve on-site livestock or slaughterhouses that only process on-site livestock would not be viable commercial enterprises. And if you look at what is actually allowed in section B2, there is a pretty lengthy list of, it is basically, it says what is allowed. It says including but not limited to, and then it has a list of examples which include a veterinary clinic or livestock. It allows you to sell irrigation pipe. Obviously, you can't manufacture irrigation pipe in EFU land. That would be a manufacturing industrial use, not a farm use, but you can sell it even though it's not produced there. Livestock auction yards, slaughterhouses, farm equipment storage, even wineries that are not otherwise permitted are allowed. So that could include selling wine without having a vineyard, which is effectively what's happening in these applications. So the code is clear. It allows this use. The appeal seeks to effectively rewrite the code through judicial activism, which this commission should reject, just as staff have already rejected it. And so we close by asking you to please affirm staff's correct interpretation of the code, which is consistent with how Oregon courts have interpreted the standard of commercial activities in conjunction with farm use since the 80s, and not adopt a radical rewrite of that will harm farmers all across the county. And we also want to thank the neighbors who are here today to support this application, and we'll turn it over to them unless you have any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
None.
None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I only have.
And I do
Oh,
have,
sorry.
my apologies, I do have printed out copies of the PowerPoint that I'm submitting into the record so that each commissioner has a copy.
You want to, oh, I guess Lance. And it looks like I have one more testimony in support of the application. Is it Ryder, Christopher Ryder? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, welcome. If you
Well,
could state your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry.
Name and address for the record.
Christopher Ryder. I'm located at 18995 Northwest Panther Creek Road, Carlton, Oregon, 97111. I've lived there for 24 years.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, I'd just like to say that I'm in, complete agreement with the, getting this to go through for, the farm stands. I've was contracted in the past to help build part of the maintenance program through all of their farm equipment and buildings and whatnot so that they would have a schedule. I've noticed that every property they bought, even the one adjacent from me over the creek, they have taken exceptional, land practices used to make it beautiful and sustainable. And that's the biggest thing I noticed was how they take care of their properties. A lot of them were in pretty bad shape, for the land part. The farm stands are in a great location, and I feel that this would enhance their ability to, like you said, prosper in an environment that's really hard to do that right now, especially just selling meat products and vegetables and whatnot. And that's about all I have to say. You guys have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, is there any other testimony in support of the applicant or application? In support. Okay, so we have Linda Mueller. Is that right? Welcome, Linda. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Linda Mueller. My address is 15150 Northwest Meadow Lake Road in Carlton. And I too wanted to just express my thanks to everything that you do for our county. I really appreciate that and appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I am a neighbor and these adjoining properties, and it has been my extreme pleasure to observe the changes and the ongoing operations around me over the past few years. I have been a patron of both of the farm stands. I love getting my fresh veggies from the local farmers. I love getting my meat from them. Many of the livestock rotate next to my property, so I actually get to meet them all before they end up going on to serve their final purpose. In fact, I love
Mary,
the
close
pigs
your
so
ears.
much. I'm always, yeah. I'm always giving the heads up when it's the pigs' time to serve, because I like to say goodbye to each and every one of them. They spend their last few weeks next to me when I'm sitting out at my pond enjoying nature.
Stop.
And in addition to my veggies and my meat, I would love to be able to grab a bottle of wine from someone, down the road or across the county or whatever. I just love the whole concept of the community building around the farm stands, the farmers supporting farmers. I personally am not a farmer, but I know what a hard and difficult life it is. And to me, this just speaks to what we're all trying to do, is just support each other and to keep the land as beautiful and pristine as possible while also feeding ourselves. So anyway, thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity to speak.
Appreciate it. Bessie is in my freezer. We name ours. We name ours. Okay. So I think we are through testimony in support of the applications, both of them. And that brings us to the appellant's case. And I believe we have Rob Halliburton presenting the appellant's case. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Rob Halliburton. I represent Friends of Yamhill County, P.O. Box 1083, McMinnville. And I'd like to start off by saying that we have no doubt that the Fodies do a great job managing their land. Our objections don't really have anything to do with the FODs. It has to do with the county's approval. And wanted to start with that and a couple of other high-level things that we see this as basically an approval of a liquor store. Admittedly, a soft liquor, wine, beer, cider store in the exclusive farm use zone. It happens to be co-located with a farm stand, but the approval could theoretically stand on its own, and it could be construed as basically a retail outlet for alcoholic beverages in the farm zone, which we don't think is appropriate. I'll go into more detail why. And the other general thing I wanted to say at the outset, because I think it's a theme that weaves through some of this, is that wine is not a farm product. Wine is a manufactured product, and I believe that both is logically and legally the case. And I believe the applicant has construed wine as being a farm product inappropriately, and I can't tell whether the county does. I think it seems to at some points and then not at others. So I'd like to go through our points in a little more detail. I don't think I'll take too much of your time today. But as staff mentioned, one of the appropriate criteria here is from the county zoning ordinance section 40210B2, which is the definition of a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use. I believe we're all in agreement on which section of that definition applies, which says retail sales and promotion of agricultural products, supplies, and services directly related to the production, harvesting, and processing of agricultural products. So there's a lot there. There's both the retail sales and promotion of all those different things. And I think that we need to unwind some of that for me to try to make sense of our argument. I'll try. We've contended that this is not, that the proposed use doesn't even qualify right out of the gate. That if you define, if a wine store is not a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use. In the staff report, you'll see that the staff believes that a more comprehensive reading of the ordinance shows that it is, that uses that are intended to promote or support farm activities occurring in the local area are this broader thing, and gave some of the examples from the ordinance on what those are. Among those examples are rental and lease of facilities and promotional events. But in both of those cases, it's directly related to promotion of the product harvested or processed on the site. So those don't really apply because in the applicant's case here, they're not promoting products produced on the site. It's not even agricultural products, it's wine. And the other things on the list, things like veterinary facilities or veterinarian offices, slaughterhouses, equipment storage, are permitted as a conditional use, commercial activity in conjunction with farm use. But another court case that the applicant didn't mention is one out of Clackamas County that set a standard for these uses. And one of the standards is that the proposed use exclusively or